Hey, what is going on guys? QWERTY Rebooted here, back with another Minecraft video on my channel. Today I have a How to Redstone episode for you, so let's get straight into it. So today I will be explaining pulse shorteners. Pulse shorteners are also commonly referred to as monostable circuits. However, I find pulse shortener to be a better name because this circuit does just that. It shortens the length of redstone pulses. So, as you can see in this example, a button will output a single pulse when pressed. The redstone lamp turns on instantly, stays on for the duration of the pulse, and then turns off. What we are trying to achieve is for the redstone lamp to turn on instantly, stay on for less than the duration of the pulse, and then turn off. This might seem useless now, but used correctly it can help solve some pretty big problems. Practical applications would include things like keeping a door open for a shorter period of time to stop either mobs or other players from following you through it. So, as you can see in this first example, we have a basic piston trapdoor set up. We press the button and there's plenty of time for something to follow us through, especially if it was running right behind us. Now, as you can see in this second example, we have the same piston trapdoor set up, only this time we have a pulse shortener running into it. So, now we will press the button, and as you can see, there is absolutely no chance of something following us through. In fact, we barely were able to fall through, it closed up so quickly. Because these circuits can be used with levers as well, they can be seen as a way to convert a constant redstone signal into a redstone pulse. This is arguably their best practical use. These circuits can also be used as the main component in toggle flip-flop circuits. I know that people would get angry if I left that use out. If you don't know what a toggle flip-flop circuit is, then watch the next How to Redstone episode that I release, because that is the episode that I am explaining them in. There are even more uses for this circuit, and once you understand how it works, then you will figure out what they are. In today's video, I will feature 5 pulse shortener designs. There are literally hundreds of different ways to make pulse shorteners in Minecraft. Now, in my opinion, these are the 5 most useful, easiest to build pulse shortener designs. Just don't feel limited to these ones in your redstone contraptions. The first design is called the piston pulse shortener, and this is the rising edge version. So, as you can see, we press the button and we get our very quick pulse. Now, because this is the rising edge version, we will be getting our pulse at the beginning of our input rather than the end. So I'm just going to demonstrate with a lever. Here comes the beginning of our input, we get our quick pulse, and the end of our input, nothing happens. So basically what is happening here is that when we press this button, it will power this piston and this redstone dust. Now when the button powers the redstone dust will power this block, and then that means that the repeater can pick up the signal from this block and put it into our output. And then the button will also be powering this piston, and this piston will take 0.1 seconds to extend, meaning that this whole circuit that was created with the redstone dust, the block, and the redstone repeater will only last for 0.1 seconds before the piston pushes this block out of the way and it will no longer work, giving us that 0.1 second pulse. So obviously this circuit is really easy to build. So I am not going to include a proper tutorial on how to build it. Just screenshot this and you should be good to go. This design is only 1 block wide and nothing is hidden, so you shouldn't have too much trouble building it. The only one thing that you do need to keep in mind is that that is a sticky piston. Now, assuming you don't have access to sticky pistons because you don't have access to slime balls to make them with, there is still a way you can make this circuit. Just use a regular piston, and instead of having that top block as anything you want, you will need to use either sand, gravel or concrete powder, just so long as it is a solid block that can fall back down on its own. The second design is called the piston pulse shortener, and this is the falling edge version. So as you can see, we press the button and we get our very quick redstone pulse. Now because this is the falling edge version, we will be getting our output at the end of our input rather than at the beginning of it. So just to show you with a lever, here is the beginning of our input, no output, and here is the end of our input, and we get our output. So this design is built very similarly and works in the exact same way as the first design I showed you. The only difference is this time we have a NOT gate attached. Now if you don't know what a NOT gate is, there's one right over there. I have already made a video explaining all about NOT gates. That is the first logic gates video I released, and there will be a link to it on screen right now or down in the description of this video if you want to go and learn all about NOT gates. So anyway, for those of you who don't want to go and watch that video, the shortened explanation is that a NOT gate will reverse the signals put into it. So basically what is happening here is that this lever is turned off. This redstone torch is then powering this redstone dust, and that has caused this piston to extend. So no redstone signals are currently flowing through. However, when we turn the lever on, then the piston retracts instantly and the redstone torch turns off instantly, and we still do not get an output. And then when we turn the lever off again, we do get an output, and that is because the piston takes 0.1 seconds to extend, but the redstone torch turns on instantly, which means that when we turn on the lever, this redstone torch will power this redstone dust, which will power this block and allow the repeater to take the signal out of it and put it into our output. And then the piston will break that signal by pushing this block up 0.1 seconds later. So we get a very quick 0.1 second pulse. Here it is again. So obviously this circuit is really easy to build. So I am not going to include a proper tutorial on how to build it. Just screenshot this and you should be good to go. This design is only one block wide and nothing is hidden, so you shouldn't have too much trouble building it. The only one thing that you do need to keep in mind is that that is a sticky piston. Now, assuming you don't have access to sticky pistons because you don't have access to slime balls to make them with, there is still a way you can make this circuit. Just use a regular piston, and instead of having that top block as anything you want, you will need to use either sand, gravel or concrete powder, just so long as it is a solid block that can fall back down on its own. The third design is called the dropper hopper pulse shortener, and this is the rising edge version. So as you can see, we press the button and we get our very quick redstone pulse. Now because this is the rising edge version, we will be getting our output at the beginning of our input. So just to show you with a lever, here is the beginning of our input, we do get an output, and then here is the end of our input, we don't get an output. Basically what is happening here is that this dropper has an item inside of it. And when we press this button, that item will travel up into this hopper. And for the small amount of time that that item remains in this hopper before the hopper puts it back down into the dropper, the comparator will detect the item being in the hopper, and then we will get an output. So just to show you once again. So obviously this circuit is really easy to build. So I am not going to include a proper tutorial on how to build it. Just screenshot this and you should be good to go. This design is only one block wide and nothing is hidden, so you shouldn't have too much trouble building it. The only one thing that you do need to keep in mind is that that dropper is facing upwards. The fourth design is called the Dropper Hopper Pulse Shortener, and this is the falling edge version. So as you can see, we press the button and we get our very quick redstone signal. Now because this is the falling edge version, that means that we will be getting our output at the end of our input rather than the beginning of it. So just to show you with this lever, here is the beginning of our input. We don't get an output, and here is the end of our input. We do get an output. So basically the way that this works is exactly the same as the third design. This is just a slightly different layout with the dropper facing sideways and then the hopper running back into it, rather than the dropper facing upwards and then the hopper running back down into it. And that design that we used in the third example is very compact. However, this design is slightly less compact, but this is the only design you can use to make the falling edge version, but you could use this design as well to make the rising edge version. It is just less compact. Basically, the only real difference between these two designs is the fact that this one has a NOT gate attached to it. Now once again, there will be a tutorial down in the description explaining what NOT gates are about, and you can go check that out if you want to. But basically, NOT gates invert the redstone signal put into them. So as you can see right now, the lever is turned off. However, this redstone torch is powering this dropper, which is obviously the opposite of what would be happening in the third design. So currently this dropper is powered, but it has already dispensed its item and it has come into the item hopper and just run back in. So this is going to need to have another on signal to dispense its item again and get us our output. So when we flip the lever on, then we will turn off the redstone torch, and obviously nothing will happen because it's not like this just received a signal. It stopped receiving a signal. And then when we flip the lever back on, then the redstone torch will power the dropper, which will make it dispense its item into this item hopper. The comparator will detect that there's an item inside the hopper, and then it will output a signal, and in that very short time that the item is in there, that is when our signal will be coming out, and then from there the hopper will put the item back in the dropper and we will stop getting a signal. So obviously this circuit is really easy to build. So I am not going to include a proper tutorial on how to build it. Just screenshot this and you should be good to go. This design is only one block wide and nothing is hidden, so you shouldn't have too much trouble building it. The only one thing that you do need to keep in mind is that that dropper is facing sideways into that hopper. The fifth and final design for today is the piston pulse shortener, and this is the dual edge version. So as you can see, we press the button and we get two very quick redstone pulses. Now because this is a dual edge pulse shortener, that means that we will be getting an output at both the beginning of our input and the end of our input. So to show you with this lever, Here is the beginning of our input, we get an output, and here is the end of our input. We also get an output. So the way that this works is very similar to the first two designs that I showed you. It relies on the fact that a piston will take 0.1 seconds to extend fully. Only now we are taking advantage of the fact that a redstone repeater has just below 0.1 seconds of delay. So it is a tiny bit faster than the piston, but not quite. And it also has delay with turning off, which redstone dust does not. So, as you can see, we flip the lever and we get our first output. So, what is happening here is that the lever is powering this block, or I suppose the button would power this block, and then the block will power this repeater. Then the repeater will take just below 0.1 seconds to output a pulse, and because at the time this block was not fully extended, this redstone line would run up into your output. However, then 0.1 seconds will pass and the piston will be fully extended, which will cut off the redstone dust, because obviously you can't have a solid block at a diagonal and still have the redstone dust climbing. That won't work. So then that will cut off the redstone dust. Even though this block is still receiving power, we will no longer be getting an output. Then when we flip the lever and turn it off, or I suppose the button would pop out, then what happens is we get another pulse coming through, and that is because the piston will retract instantly, whereas the repeater will stay powered for that 0.1 seconds of delay. So this would obviously be extended, and then when the piston starts retracting, this repeater, if you can just watch that redstone dust, will take a little bit longer to turn off. So yes, it's not that noticeable, but basically then this block will be out of the way, the lines will rejoin, and the pulse will be able to flow through for just enough time for us to get a short pulse before the signal turns off. So obviously this circuit is really easy to build. So I am not going to include a proper tutorial on how to build it. Just screenshot this and you should be good to go. This design is only one block wide and nothing is hidden, so you shouldn't have too much trouble building it. The only one thing that you do need to keep in mind is that that is a sticky piston. So, that just about wraps up today's redstone tutorial. If you want to see more pulse shortener designs in future videos, just let me know down in the comments section. Please like this video and share it with your friends, just to make sure that it gets out to a wider audience. Also subscribe to my channel and ring that notification bell just so that you never miss out on any of my channel's content. And with that being said guys, I'll see you in the next video. QWERTY rebooted out.